Welcome to Steve's Place. Glad to see you all here again. It's Sunday, 6 p.m. on the nose. And tonight we have a wonderful show coming up with Karen and her concept of the a spherical cube, I guess. Anyway, uh, I'm glad to see you all here. And before we get started, we'll just have a few details to take care of. Number one is if you go to our testatech.info, and for those who have a hard time finding it, there's our QR code. Just click on that, and that'll take you right to our website. And if you click on the image with this guy here, you can order the or sign up for the video on demand from 2025. It's $99. We are working on getting gift subscriptions lined up so people can give them away as gifts if you like, which helps everybody. It helps us keep this conference going. And all the money all the money that we get, from our sales basically goes into keeping the conference going every year. If you ever get to having a surplus, then we'll get our magazine going again. But all the money that we put in the Testatech goes into promoting alternative energy and alternative medicine. And we're not getting rich here. It's not my goal in life. What remains of it. So anyway, like I say, go to our website, testatech.info with the QR code, and sign up for this year's conference. We had a great conference. We have like 26, 27 plus speakers there, 28 speakers, and a lot of material in there. Plus, we have all the videos on there. Plus, between the presentations, Karen and her crew were hosting the conference, and they were taking an interview, and we have various speakers, between the presentations. So there's a lot of material there over a good 5-day period. It's one of the longer conferences that you're going to be able to go to in that. And you might want to go ahead and mark your calendars for next year. Next year's will be August 12th to the 16th. We put out a call for papers already. I'll probably formalize that here on line 2 as well. And for those, when you click on that, you're going to come to a page something like this. And you can also get last year's conference, which is 2024. And this year's conference, each one is $99, but it's a bargain. It's a lifetime deal. You order it once, and it's available to you forever. You can also order things like TV and that. And if you see the green bar there, that's if you want to make a out-and-out donation to Testatech that goes directly to us, and so it really helps us out even more. We're already starting on next year's. I've already got a request for quotes in Albuquerque. Waiting to see what these hotels think it's going to be like next year. This is probably the hardest, most difficult part of the job, is getting out the crystal ball here and looking into the future to see what the economy is going to be like, because what the economy is going to be like, or what these companies perceive it's going to be like, will determine what kind of rates we get. I'm hoping to keep the rates at least the same or lower if possible. We'll see what happens here. I'm going to about 6 or 7 different locations and that. And while I'm here, I'd like to also encourage you all to go to our Tesla Tech YouTube channel. It really helps us when you do that. If you go there, go to our homepage, which you see in the little computer screen there. They see a yellow block there, and the yellow block will have the Tesla Tech channel, the conference directory, and speaker directory. And if you go to the channel, it's a great place to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, subscriptions are free. or join. You can join for $9.95 and have access to all of our material up there. We have over 1,500 videos up there, and we're getting ready to get started adding more. Anyway, that also helps us throughout the year because we have a lot of expenses. We have to keep the doors open, stay online. We're getting ready to convert another 300 or 400 videos when we get to our new location. And once we do that, a lot of that material will be from the 90s. And it's never be, you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet. That is really good technical material in that. So to reiterate, we're going to have a conference coming up August 12th to 16th. If you want to be a volunteer, give me a call. We could use help doing things like promos and that. And that, I think I'm going to move on. I want to encourage everyone, if you like our show tonight, to be sure to give us the thumbs up on the YouTube thing. And like I say, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. So anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce Karen Elkins. And Karen, I've known her for, 10 years or so, but at least, a long time. But anyway, she puts together a magazine, an online magazine called Science to Sage, a very extremely good publication. I don't know where she finds the time to do as many pages as she does. Her current book's like 260 pages plus, and like when I do a magazine, I keep it to 64 pages, and I have a hard time doing that quarterly, But we need to get back to doing our magazine. But anyway, could you want to tell them how to get a hold of your magazine?
Yeah, if they go to sciencetosagemagazine.com, and it's TO, so it's science and then to SAGE at sciencetosagemagazine.com. Yeah. And this issue, the thing that you're going to watch tonight, is up there for you to look, because I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but it was an adventure. You want me to start, Steve, at all, or?
Well, right now I got to figure out how to remove this other thing so I can put yours up there.
Okay.
Yeah. There it goes.
Yeah, I have to say mine was an adventure. Let me see if I do that, if that makes it even. Yeah, mine was a total adventure I was last year doing a show with a group from the Walter Russell Museum, that they were no longer with the museum, but worked with the museum for Walter Russell's work. And we did a show called The Awakening Your Inner Genius, and Kimberly Faith and her partner, Ken Pearson, were funding it and doing it. But it taught me a lot of things, but it got me also curious because, even though it's a year-long program, we did it on Sunday nights, the stuff is pretty quick. And so one of the things is like, okay, so what do I really care about the sphere and the cube? And so some of these geometries is like, all right. And so part of my curiosity was, how many spheres and cubes can I find through science, cosmologies around the world? And I just kind of let it flow for me. And so what we're going to do sort of really quickly through this evening is we're going to go through some of the cubes in the sphere, the foundations of creation, the mirrors of fractal evolution, man's unfolding, ancient insights from east to west, world religions in it, scaling, the standing wave, the flower of life, the seed of life, light, the domes, the seasons, the four corners, the four elements, and all of that stuff. And how does that all fit into a square/cube sphere? Here we go. So it was kind of an interesting one for me. So what we also would need to sort of kind of get is this has been around in every tradition forever. It is what I would say, I would call it the wisdom kind of the ages. And so when we started with Walter Russell's work, and we're looking at the idea of what is the cube is a really interesting thing because it is like the container, and it is the shape where things fold out from. So when we look at the cube, we just think it's square, but when you actually look at it from all the different dimensions, you will see that it is basically, it turns into all of these structures. It's not just a square. So it creates order and structure. I'm going to skip that one. So when we go to here, we look that for modern physics, it is kind of the lattice. It is the scaffolding for creation. It is the thing that creates those solid crystalline countless like sugar and salt and diamonds. It is the framework for matter's cohesion. And I think that's pretty cool. So here we have, you can see where it's carbon, it's salt, and it's sugar. And the crystalline structure, you got to remember, the crystalline structure is the thing that holds a memory. And when we solidify in a crystalline form, it actually acts like, in a sense, a timestamp and almost like a computer. So when we also look at the cube, because we're looking at cubes, it is the structure, this hexagonal shape is what we swim in our mother's womb. And it is because it is the most conductive design that we have in what we do. It is the thing that creates the stability. It also echoes the salt of the sea, because the salt, again, is more of the cube, and it mirrors the blood and sort of the chemistry. And when we look at our own structure of our own body and our own systems, being that we're 99.9% water at a molecular level, and water forms in hexagonal cubes, we know that from Dr. Gerald Pollack's work, that that's pretty interesting. But then one day, let me say, yeah, you can see that this is still mirrored. I was doing my book on water, because I have a book on water, and it's called Echoes of Water. And when you started seeing these lattices, when we think of different traditions with the web reflecting, you can see that it kind of does mirror the geometry and the things that we see in water and even in the clouds. Again, it may not be the perfect cube, but you got to remember we still live in a place where I'm going to call it a flexible magnetic weave. I think the first person who ever mentioned that concept to me was a gentleman by the name of John Depew. And this is where a picture from NASA. And if you see that cube sitting in there too, this lattice, I think that's pretty cool, because then you can see the hexagon is nature's most conductive, sturdy, fundamental pattern in nature. And then it harkens to the whole idea of the kaleidoscope and how it weaves also all the different patterns in nature. So we were in this kaleidoscopic journey through the lens of life. So it's got to remember, it's fractal by nature, it's holographic, it's crystalline, and and remember that light is a recorder. That's what the hologram is, a recorder of light. So it is a recorder of light, the hexagram. You can see how it all becomes part of it. So it's encoded in the vibration. It's part of the Akashic records. And when we look at different traditions, like the Eye of Horus, it's still talking about the divine sight and eternal perspective. When we look at the Christian, it's a recorder of the book of life. When we look at the Islam, it is called the perceived tablet. And when we look at the Kabbalistic, it's the tree of life and how energy flows. So these mirrored lattice cubes of light. And in Walter Russell's work, we know, here's Walter Russell's lattice. This is where the mirror reflects back to us our own journey. And it becomes the cube. And where does this cube again show up? Well, when we have the cube, it unfolds into the cross. So the cube unfolds the cosmic man. And when we look at this, this is the sacred architecture of the human body. It is the archetypal pattern upon which the body of man and temples are actually formed. So we see this in cathedrals, temples, cosmic moments, and the structures are not just built, they are tuned. Running up and down, we'll go here because it shows it. It runs up and down the spine when we look at this. So in Walter Russell's cosmology, the cube is the scaffolding of light, the container through which the wave takes form. The sphere is the expression of unity and the infinite wound of becoming. Within this sacred architecture, this union is encoded. The square foundation anchors the earthly, while the dome, so where we have the dome, is where we see that heavenly insight. So when you look at this, it's the heart of the cross. The mind is the cosmic mind, and we're anchored to the earth. So this is part of our human journey. The other thing that we can look at when we look at this is it's the music of the spheres is literally encoded into a temple, into the cathedrals. When they did that, all those sacred hymns were all part of altering you. So at the center, the altar or heart of the nave aligns with the solar plexus of the heart chakra or the sacred heart in the Christian tradition, making the space an integral alchemy where divine communion takes place. So that's where the music of the spheres and even the planets, believe it or not, sort of line up with that ear. The place that I saw this, when I was doing this, I would wake up and I remember all the different places that I had remembered over the years of doing the magazine for like 12, 15 years. And I remember seeing this, and I remember at the time not relating to it at all. And then going back and going, oh, this is this part shows the grid where they gave you your structure, your stability, your order for where everything would unflow from. So the cube is the temple, the body, and the structure. And then when we went into the Tibetan structures, you can still see the four corners that anchor everything. You see the circle and the wheel of life. So in this, you can see the Sanskrit words mean the circle, the cosmic map or the sacred blueprint of representing the universe, the inner mind. The origins of all creation come from the cube and then spin out. And it's the four gates and portals. So here's your gates and your portals. And we see that in the four cardinal directions and the cycle and the spin of life, which will show up. So again, the other thing that came to my mind was the bindi, that single point, that circle that we put here, which also reminds us that all is mind. It's the cosmic mind. And that's what the other part that Walter Russell was all about, was at the fact that it is all of creation comes from our desire and our desire to be. And in the Egyptian one, again, the cosmic egg, the spirals out. Again, if you think of the bindi and then you think of here, the sun and what radiates and what generates life in the field, which generates and orbits everything. So here, when we looked at this, the other one was too, when I think the atomic electromagnetic field generates orbital patterns. That goes back to this one as well. And I think the the gases, when they were, what was that word? The egg was the gases in the Sanskrit as well. That's what it was. That was a Richard Merrick's relating that to me. And that was in my very first book. Just as the cube in Russell's work acts as a scaffolding of light waves in motion, the Tibetan mandala serve as a psycho-spiritual map to the enlightenment, a fractal mirror of the cosmic harmony in intervals. So when I even think of the square and I look at it and I put it in half, one being hot and one being cold, when it turns, it creates into like a cone. And that cone is like the lens of light. And those lens of light unfold into that golden ratio, which we'll find here. But again, you see where the four corners come in. We'll see that in other traditions as well. But the four corners are also the Cartesian coordinates. They're also the four pillars that ground, they anchor the earth, the fire, the air, the water, the four elements, and the four astrological signs is the part that creates the cosmic anchor. I think that was an interesting idea. And then when we looked at that, we can go back to, we have, how does that, the four and the corners play out in our own lives? And part of it is the four seasons, whether it's spring, summer, autumn, whether it's birth, youth, maturity, or wisdom. It's always showing us something, and it's always that four. It keeps kind of showing up. And then when we go here, we square off for life with the elements again: earth, water, fire, and air. And that's where the earth grounds your body and the bones, water moves your feelings and memory, and fire drives your passion and purpose, and air breathes through the vision. So these are a way of understanding how just even those elemental forces are driving even you. That's the alchemical nature, even within your body, because the water holds your memory, your fire is your neural network, and your air is your spirit, and how you actually bring that forward into your own reality. So where does the crib show up in all these different traditions? This one is in the Jewish tradition. This is where they hold some of their sacred teachings. And why the cube? Again, this is interesting to me. And then we go back to the Metron's cube, not only reveals the scaffolding of creation, but also reflects the light within. And you can see the different points that it creates. I keep trying to keep my notes. There's so much in here. So that's why you must, if you want to go through the magazine, you can do that. So the hexagonal and the cube are the intersections that represent the union of opposite forces, spirit and matter, male and female, and as above, so below. So the Metron cube is also where the cosmic is the pattern. It's showing you the pattern of consciousness and the lattice of the infinite. The one thing that I should put this somewhere because something else will show up. But keep this image in mind that there's a concave and a convex lens that will be showing up. That is that inner structure, the core, where the light charges, and then from it, all life comes out of. And that's a really interesting kind of point of view to think about when this next thing comes up for Walter Russell. The cube also shows up in Islam. And so it's where they go to the Kabbalah in Mecca in Saudi Arabia, and they this is a really interesting, I like that word. It's where does it circumambulate all around the cube. It's a devotion for the cosmic cycles in the sacred geometry acts as, there it is, circumambulation symbolizing the continuous flow of divine energy, much like the celestial bodies orbiting the planet. The other thing where the cube shows up, and here's what I'm going to say. I invite anybody who comes up with more options for the cube that I have not figured out here, do let me know, because I just kept waking up, but you haven't looked at that, and you haven't looked at this. So this one is the pyramid, is the perfect cube on the bottom, again, because of its stabilizing nature. And it, from its base moving up, it has, the electromagnetic grid. It's got the golden ratio in it. But the other thing that was really interesting about the beehive, especially when we're thinking of Egypt, they used to call it the Queen's Resonant Chamber and the hive. And why people like John Stewart Reed had gone in, and they understood that it actually resonated out like the hive. So the queen sat on the side telling her minions what to do. So, but it would echo out as a chamber. I think a lot of other people think that it was also a grid place where all of the different other pyramids from around the world, whether it was Giza, China, Mesoamerica, even Japan, all lined up in a grid to stabilize the planet. So here was, again, the whole idea of The hexagon pattern gives birth to square, the foundation, the wave, driving geometry. It represents a natural transition for a static form to a dynamic structure. So again, the queen's chamber by this view becomes a vibrational womb where dimensional order is encoded into matter. So you can see how it comes out. And the hexagon is also, I would call it the conductive design, the number 6. So you've got the first one coming from heaven, and then you have earth, and by bringing them together, you have heaven and earth, and it is the most place where it's conductive. The other one that showed up one morning was the cosmic turtle. Because if you look in the different traditions, such as the Hopis, the Hindus, and the Iroquois traditions, have seen the turtle as a cosmic foundation. And when you look at it, it has the platonic solids of the hexagonal structures and the, what's the other one? The hexagon and the pentagon. And you see that structure as a perfect structure, like in a soccer ball, where you can make the earth, but it takes those two, which I think is kind of interesting. And then we go into the idea of the wave field. But before we do that, we start with our 0 point. So in Walter Russell's work, the 0 point is the fulcrum, like the seesaw. The fulcrum is the center of the seesaw where things balance back and forth, which all light waves expand and contract, giving rise to the structure of the cube sphere. So from this radiant thread of light is woven the crystalline living matrix of creation, where the beginning of light forms within its divine geometry. So when I was looking at, I was doing something when I was doing some of the videos for the Walter Russell Sunday programs, I had to do a ton of research because, at first I thought I kind of got it. And then I realized I really didn't know much of anything. And it was quite of an interesting unfolding. And within the synoid, you can see how energy wraps out. So you have your negative and positive pole that radiates out. And it reminded me of the lotus, which I thought was kind of interesting. The petal, so every petal is like a wavefront, an electromagnetic ripple. The earliest petals are tight and closer to the center, and as they go out, they become less impactful or less dense, you might say. And when I looked at this way, you can see the torus field and how it would, and then how it absolutely reflects. So the lotus field, the torus field, you can kind of see how it creates it. The full open torus resembles a toroid, even from above, circular center, petals radiating like toroidal flow lines. So again, it's the center, which is a still point. The stalks is the magnetic. And you can see how as above, so below. And the interesting thing also about the lotus, it's the one thing that comes from the mud, comes to the light, and just becomes beautiful. That's part of the reason that in the Eastern traditions, they like it so much, because that's really the idea of how we in ourselves transform from being our base human beings to our more enlightened self. Sometimes part of my fun part is just looking at the patterns and how when I overlay things, you can see they are like wavefronts. You wouldn't have thought of it that way, but they are. And in those middle points are like the standing waves where things get created. So both the lotus and the electromagnetic fields unfolding like a fractal patterns. You can see how they just kind of keep maneuvering out. So within the standing wave, the idea of something is born. And I had to kind of figure out how that was going to, because some of this stuff I get and some of the stuff I don't always get. So I have to do lots of pictures to kind of see as a standing wave where something collects and gets trapped. That's where it gets to, and you got to remember it's still spinning because this is still the wave. So it's still spinning and generating its geometry within that nodal point. So here, the still point from here, let me see here. Yeah. When we look at the golden ratio where things like I talked about the cone unfolding out, That's how your ear hears. So your ear is even shaped in the same form. So the platonic solids are the foundation and the building blocks of creation, encoded in the resonant architecture of the cosmos. So there was a guy named, I put it here if you guys go to it, Eric Rankin did a whole thing on the sonic geometry. And each one of these different forms of the platonic solids actually create wave patterns. And they actually show how, when Kepler talked about nested fields and our planets and how they actually do the same thing, they're nested, and these almost reflect the same sort of geometry in the poles. So as they go, the resonant fields create. So we live in that sort of sonic geometry. It also matches the way it forms what I call the structure, the structure of the SAM model, the structure of the atom. All these links are in the magazine for you to follow. So it's like themselves are structured by the same platonic harmonics, nested and organized by standing wave patterns. SAM reveals that the electrons do not orbit randomly, but instead follow a nested polyetherial pattern that mirrors the platonic series. So it's interesting that the whole universe is structured through sound, pattern, and all of this evolving from the cube and the sphere. So again, Eric Rankin's video is quite good. And the structure of the atom, if you go to their website, you will see how they've clustered and how they form all out of the tetrahedron. So what happens with the flower? This is the lens one. This one was Walter Russell's one. This one kind of set me on a tailspin, because in his work, he said there's only really two things. There's the concave lens that's just here, and the concave, so think of this one caving, and the convex, which is this one. This one is male, and this one is female. When you take them and you put them together, you actually get a magnetic field. He is the charge, and she is the field. And so he is masculine, she is feminine. He is the outward breath, electric, and she's the inward breath, where she's bringing life in and then giving it birth. So when I started taking, I said the cube and the sphere, here's my magnetic. So I put my poles in there so you could see. You could also see, again, that sinoid, where you see it creates the field. So he is the charge, she is the field. That way you can see that. And we all know that there's the dipole nature of everything. And I want you to notice how some of these things start creating some symbols here. So again, you have to remember that these flow up and down and up and down and up and down. And in between those sparks are those standing waves. And I would think that is where, if there's only light, this is where fusion happens. In between, when you get these two pressure conditions, hot and cold, coming together, and you're igniting the spark. Here's Walter Russell's diagram. So I want you to imagine these, but they're pulsing. And as they pulse and they meet, the hot and cold conditions ignite the different whatever in the standing wave, whatever wants to come through in its field. And that's where, if you look at Walt, you can also begin to see the circles, the vesica Pisces, and the lenses. And again, it pulses, it breathes in and it breathes out. So the male again is the convex, concave, and the female, I did that wrong, is a concave. Convex. I can sound. The vex, I think the women are vexing, and the concave is the men are pulling in and giving power to their energy. But when we start seeing things move and move, then you can see why, like the Hindu swastika, it's showing the rotation of energy within these fields. So that is one thing where we want to look at the dynamics of the cube and the sphere and how this creates the circulation. there's your circulation, there's your pinpoint, there's your volcano. It shows you that that center is where things get explosive and come out and then create the field. Then we also see, for the first time, the beginning of the Templars. What were the Templars talking about? I love that concave and convex lens. That's it. And the rose is the unfolding of the golden ratio, the pattern of life itself. So they're talking about the dynamic charge of the masculine energy and the unfolding of the female energy within that. So he is the carrier of the seed. She is the womb. They're birthing life through the living waters, weaving life through the golden strands of life's DNA. I put these ones in just to kind of then maybe this might help make more sense of some of Walter Russell's diagrams. You see where here you're seeing the motion, and then you begin to see how they're dividing, how they spin, how they create the lens. I'm going to call it even the all-seeing eye. And this one with the focal lens, as you can see it, how it's projecting in and out. The other thing that kind of grabbed me, and I didn't even know if this would be possible, but I thought it was really interesting. If the rib is the masculine and it's the holding, and is the field the women's in the Bible like the ribs? So is she like, is she also carrying the ancestral DNA? She weaves the line. So I don't know, that one was a fun one. So just as a rib curves from the spine to support the body, the magnetic field arches from the central axis to give structure to the creation. She is the field, the watery toroidal womb in which charge spirals and organizes itself into form. She is the rib and the lens oscillating between the concave and the convex, the female architecture of space that receives and expands and unfolds. In Genesis, it is said that she arrives from Adam's rib, and so too in physics of becoming the dawn of light, emerging from the rib like a magnetic scaffolding of the atom. So that's a Karen. Then the other one that came to me was the thunderbolt of the gods. So this goes back to, many of you would know, the electric universe model. Again, there's your shape and there's your magnetic field on both ends. So you can see that this is what actually brings charge to the reality. And it seemed like the ancients knew that. So this I don't know how quite to say it. The Jiva mirrors the masculine concave lens in the Walter Russell's wave theory, generating the force of compression, charge, and fusion. The concave geometry concentrates light into form, just as the Jira channels divine energy into a focused axis of power. So again, it's kind of fun. I also wanted to show in here, again, the Templars sign. Again, the moving, not just 2, but the 4 when it spins, creating the charge. This goes back even into Walter Russell's work, where you can see the magnetic field generating from all of this. Here was Walter Russell's image in the back. I put the Templars so you could kind of see these prism structures coming out. Actually, that kind of reminds me of Terrence Howard's work a little bit, where he presented at Tesla Tech last year. He did a nice job. And again, you can see the Templars coming out of here. So it mirrors the masculine cave. It's indestructible. It's part of Buddhism and the Tantric part. The composition of 2 interlocking thunderbolt scepters radiating in, we got to go again, 4 directions. So that 4 keeps showing up over and over, the full forward structure and the cyclical nature of reality. The other part with the Walter Russells, when we start looking at the Vesica Pisces, and I'm going to call it the lenses now, you can see how it is created as we go out with compression. So here are 4 pairs of these lenses which compress, and each one's located at an octave position in the waves in the same order as the octaves, the elements of matter are located. So I kind of put this for you. And if we look at Walter Russell's work, you can see the pendulum, if you are familiar with the three colors going this way and the colors going that way. So again, I wanted to put you, when we look at this thing, I want to come over here. And when we look at this is Walter Russell scaling. You can see that that's how the humans scale. I put the golden ratio over here. And then you can see how things begin to flower out of a circular octave. So here's your square and here's your circle. And here's one of early Walter Russell's drawings where, again, you can see his lenses move out. I put the lenses here so you can kind of see the compression at the mathematical ratio to include the next similar lens. Then we get to another wake up one. It was the cubit. So the cubit is one of the oldest measurements known to man. But you can, again, there's Walter Russell's cube. There's your human body in scale. And then what I wanted to kind of show when I go to here is you can see in the ancient traditions, these lenses still hold true over these mandalas. These progressive lenses aren't just tools of optics, they are models of growth. They convert these converging lenses like the concave and the illustrate the way light focuses inward, just as the golden ratio spirals, energy compresses towards the center before expanding. So I put the different lenses here so you could see what they look like. So yeah, conversely, the diverging lenses, just as the concave form spreads light outward like waves diffusing, which we saw with the lotus petal. So yeah, they're not just lenses; they're actually what I call optical tools. They're all kind of working in together to see how all of these things go together. And so when we see the Vesica Pisces, you can see that as also the eye. So it's also looks like a seed. It looks like how things unfold with the golden ratio. It's part of the Platonic solids, music intervals, and biological blueprint for what we're going to start seeing is, again, we'll get to that too. The flower of life. The Vesica Pisces is a lens in every sense. So there's your lens. It was used in ancient traditions. It creates an intersection for life. And it produces the sacred geometry, the flower, the fish, and the womb. So this one, I wanted to show you this. This is a person you're going to have next week, which is Michael R. Evans. And he came up with the tri-ray, which is what he calls, even before anything else, this is the seed of creation. This is also the lens. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, that reminds me of Walter Russell's work. Again, see the lenses that are going out. And if you've seen other Walter Russell's work, you'll see that this is part of his square. And the seed idea, therefore, being that it's made of nothing but light, is intelligent. So I took when I was playing, I took these seeds, I took the concave and the convex lens, and I started playing with it over the flower of life and how it created its web. And then I could see not only the seeds and the repeating seeds within the seeds and how they recorded, and within the flower of life, how I could get all the geometry out of it. And these lenses, so the Loom of Light by Michael R. Evans shows how that happens. And we'll have next week, I've just finished a magazine with him, and his work is beautiful. Here's one of his pictures. I put the flower of life on it, just so you could see, again, it's based on the concave. And if you look at this, the convex lens. So the flower of life and everything that unfolds life, is it made of all of these lenses that make into spheres that fold out of the, when you look at these cube dimensions? So it's the eye of creation. It's a circle which gives birth to one thing and to another, and the seed ideas. Again, here's Walter Russell's work with the lenses and the circles. And this is Michael Evans' picture of, he worked with glass before. And so he made all kinds of beautiful things. So again, I wanted to show this is actually what comes out of light. So again, this would be the cube doing it. Here's your triangles. And again, right in the center is the lens. And just to make sure you didn't miss it, I went through and put these lenses, the concave and the convex, over the seed, star seed, and the lens that flowers life. So as Michael Evans says, in the Polynesian tradition, they would call it the star seed. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's a living mechanics of becoming a new seed of expression through mirrors of water reflection, folding and refolding of light. And this is what Michael said, my life has been a revelation to understanding that I am connected to all that is and will ever be. So the flower of life is not just an ancient symbol, it's a living mechanic of becoming. Through lens, seed, prisms, and waves, the light spins its web and its dance itself into form, which is kind of, when you think about it, they all must come from this, and we all must go back to it. It's a recycling system. But it shows that we all are light. We all come from the one. When we looked at the holographic nature of reality, you then begin to see that the way that the hologram works, it projects light. We receive it with our own body and our own light. And I think that's when Walter Russell basically said, in the wave lies the secret of creation. And in Genesis, it said, let there be light. And the Brahma speaks, aham, I am, creating the wave, the optical illusion and vibration, the universe into existence. So when you look at how light gets projected, how it spins, and how the hologram works, it begins to put the whole kind of idea together. Firelight, reflectives in the water with the solidified matter. So again, it's still a prism. You can see that it's light. That which man calls matter or substance has no existence whatsoever. So-called matter is but waves of motion of light, electrically divided into opposite pairs, then electrically conditioned and patterned into what we call various substances of matter. Yeah, everything is coming from particles and waves. So briefly put, matter, it is but a motion of light, and motion is not substance, is only appearance to be. Take motion away and there would be not even appearance of substance. That's Walter Russell. And I think I wanted to, in the idea of this, what kind of struck me, I said, you know what? I look at the Vesica Pisces and it does look like, not the Vesica Pisces. Yeah, I guess that. But these lenses look like seeds. So when Walter Russell talks about seed ideas, then what must be held in the seed is its intelligence. So when we look at a tree and in it, the seed falls, all the intelligence is in it, and all the mechanics and all of it's what meant to be will unfold in reality. So in that little seed will become a big oak. So I think when we understand that, that's pretty amazing, that when that seed lands, just like your seed, what were you meant to be? What was the seed within you? What was the generational pieces coming out? So these lens, seeds, and visions, prisms to process, and the kaleidoscope is the field, which creates that radiant flowering and the geometry of life. And another way to look at it is when we look at how the flower of life and the seed of life unfold, how you in the womb, the sperm gets to be all these eggs that manifest on all these days. The geometry spins itself. And here, this is the same thing. So when Walter Russell says this, the record of motion are seeds of repetition of motion. And I think it becomes you can understand it a little bit easier this way. In the seed is the desire of manifestation, image formed in its form idea. So if you've got that oak tree, in that seed is already its brilliance, which is in it. All forms are waveforms. All waves unfold from one seed record of these waveforms. So I just think, here you can kind of see how we literally spin out in our reality. And here's the wheel. A divergent lens does more than scattering light. It releases an encoded geometry. As light passes through, it expands. It does not disperse chaos. It unfurls through precise angular trajectories, echoing the harmonic rotations found in nature's most sacred patterns. So here, this is where death is not an end, but a precise angular release, a return to the unseen geometries of potential. Just as one becomes the many, the light spirals outward, creating the universe through the art divergence of becoming. And again, I'm going to go a little faster because we're going a long time here. Here we go. And the Borealis basically is showing us the regenerative part of light. In the Walter Russell lenses, when I showed you the different lenses, and when you see this moving out, the power of the lens, here's the difference. It's the pressure conditions that create the different parts of reality. So the only difference between a piece of coal and a diamond is the compression that you see. And so, and how does that happen? It comes from the hot and the cold. And when I took how a laser does it, I put that lens right in. I can't help myself. I was trying to find all these different things. And the lens creates the standing wave, and in it, boom, there you go. And when you look at the electric proton pairs, what do you got in the middle? You got that other lens, and there you go. You see the same thing all over again. So light behaves in the same way. A converging lens focuses light into coherence, compressing waveforms into a unified, highly intense beam as a laser fusion. So I think that's kind of cool. I was thinking that's when they would say there's really no particles in there. What you're really doing is you're getting these fusions of elements. And this is where he talks about the other thing he says, there's two things. There's only water and fire. One hot, one cold, the balance of the interchange of the two. And when they meet with the other concave lens, you can see where they unite and spark each other. It's no different than a thunderstorm. When you see the hot air coming in and meeting with the cold air, you get the thunder because there's the condition that's happening that's unbalanced, and you get charge in the air. So, and the one thing I wanted to show, here's a sun hitting a window. And if you see the circles and see all the overlays in the circles, I think when I saw that, and then you see the little triangles coming out of it. It's amazing how you can see once you see that. So from the circle of life, we literally frame our reality from real to a real. And this is where we can see the Akashic records recording, the imprinted hologram in every atom. And this is our living cosmos when we go from one reality to the next, frame by frame, unfolding our reality. The one thing that's oftentimes, when I talked about the hot and the cold, the one thing that happens that when we look at all the traditions, they all seem to have known it, but it is the dance of opposites. And so when you look at it, again, I'm going to go back to the hot and the cold, the yin and the yang, the different interplay of the sky and the earth, the birth of the worlds, just to show you that is so. And when you look at the native, the power of the world always works in circles, and so it is everything where power moves. I didn't say that very well. That's all right. But there we go. East, west, north, south, all the directions, the unity, the connections. And again, you're going to see from one tradition to the other, it is the same thing. That this is not the universal source talking to one group or another. It's been talking to our reality for people, trying to show us the way that we need to be. And in that balance of energy, that was critically important to Walter Russell, because it is the cycle of life, the rhythm, the male, the female. You can't have one without the other. There you go. And then when you look at the sphere, the seed and the spiral of becoming, you can see that in the dome, the round is the part that is showing you the kaleidoscope. It's showing you the stained glass windows are encoded with deeper geometry, the spiral of becoming. In Walter Russell's words, the record of motion are the seeds of repetition. The sphere in this view is not static, but a memory of desire in motion, a seed of light, and the spiral into form, and to form life itself. So, I mean, when we go into our sacred places, the things that a lot of people, the new churches just don't have this memory in it. They have a lot of music, but they don't have the sacred chants. They don't have the remembrance of the encoding of this geometry everywhere, which is what we're missing. When I look at Marco Rodin's work, I went back because I helped Marco do his book. And again, you see the lens right in there and the circle, the male and the female, that in the field. And when we looked at the building, the Taj Mahal and the circle, Marco's work actually fits identically right over the top. There's your sphere, there's your geometry of unfolding life. And that was built by the king at the time for his, I forget, for his wife, lover, I don't know what it was, but it was built in the power of love and the respect. Again, we look at the chalice, we look at the Templar Knights, and the chalice is long associated with the Holy Grail as more than a sacred cup. It's a symbol of receptivity, resonance, and return. And so again, I've seen that in many places. And I want to show you this because again, this flower of life and the chalice they're all containers for water, fire, air. It doesn't matter whether it was Egypt, the dream catcher in North America, or these doors in the Arctic to Islam. I mean, the symbol is something they knew across cultures for a very, very, very long time. And I love this saying, the first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the soul of people when we realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers. And when we realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that the center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. And then maybe we could have some peace. I like that idea. Also, just to go back to the flower of life, it's also in China. There's the cub, there's the seed, he's the seed, she carries it. That is, again, the male and the female. And in this interlocking center of creation is where we are. So I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go back to here because the question is, when did all of this become woo-woo? And you can see that it's anything but woo-woo. It's actually trying to invite us to recognize there is a lens, a purpose, a structure, and that each thing is creating a foundation one for the other. The male and the female, they're a perfect union. There's the one half to the other. And so the fact that there's a few things that I think that our culture could kind of rethink and re-examine. So why sacred science became woo-woo? It didn't fit the model of control, and it became the mechanics of reduction. So when the scientific revolution, enlightenment emerged in the 1700s, they brought a profound advancement, but also a shift in worldview. Reality is no longer seen as a live, conscious, or interconnected. Instead, the universe became a machine, and everything, including the body, nature, and mind, was reduced to parts, mechanics, and formula. The mechanic reductionism is the idea that everything complex can be broken down to similar parts, but reality was no longer seen as alive, curious, or connected. And I think when we look at the way we need to look at things, I'm not going to, because we're almost our hours up, I'm just going to flip through this because the whole thing is up on sciencetosagemagazine.com. It's free. It says just sign the newsletter, go into the library. It's all in there. Just to show you how the mirrored cube invites us to see how we reflect the greater rhythm, how we walk into the greater intentionality when we're conscious, and that this great infinite universe comes, this great wound of the circular paths. The universe is the created manifestation of the divine mind, he says. It's a call to explore. Step into your box with awareness means entering a realm where the line of the cube guides you into a deeper understanding of who you are. Again, I'm going to say this is all. There's even a meditation exercises in the back. The divine fluid is a reflection of the divine mind, the energy of love and consciousness through the shapes. The very fabric of our world reflects the internal symmetry of the divine. The work I've explored with the Walter Russell Igniting Your Inner Genius has been an amazing journey for me this last year. I invite you to go to the website because the whole year's worth of study is there with dialogues and videos that I had done for them. And so I'm just going to go through this because the hour's basically done, but you can see what else is there for you to explore. Why there's no such thing as death. That was Walter Russell's. Because we're recycling. We're just all light. So we have the opportunity to create, to become the greatest thing, to control our minds and to control our bodies, to be reflective, to be creative, to understand that there's duality. By letting go, you create the space for something new when you have to. So the current issues, I'm going to go here, but I really want to show you the idea of Walter and Leo Russell. So I would go to the University of Science and Philosophy if you want to see more of it. And I invite you to go look at the book, the magazine here. I think it's great. And this was one thing I have in my first book, which I really loved. So this was when Walter Russell asked, "Who am I?" And the voice answered, "I am an expression of the universal passion of creation. God created me that I should fulfill his purpose. God gave me desire to create and the power of creation. God dwells within me. I shall not deny the power within me, which is God within me. I shall not close the ears of my soul to the whispers of my soul, which makes me dwell on the mountaintop in ecstasy of inner thinking. The universe desire is expressed of an idea through which the rhythm of thinking, in accordance with the law, in endless sequence throughout the endless space." So you're here to create, and you're here to make manifest your reality. This is not approved by Walter and Russell. If you go to their website, they have the cube. And when you look at the cube and you look at these things, you can see that in it, there's vibration, there's ratios, there's strings, and there's octaves in that cube. That's a Karen creation, not approved. But yeah, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, if you're curious, go to the Awaken Your Inner Genius. That's the thing we did last year. And we have some specials on there that we did. We have the whole study course is there for a conversation. And I think on Thursday nights at the University of Science Philosophy, they also have another group that you can join. So anyway, with that, Steve, thank you. And yeah, for letting me play and show some of my fun stuff. I went through it. So you guys, it's all there for you to go through slowly, but at least it kind of gives you an overview that every culture had it. It's not unique to Walter and Leo Russell. It is a coming back and a revergence for us to kind of look and play with a completely different thing with the different lenses, where I think the lenses kind of cemented it for me.
Okay, well, thank you, Karen. And what I'll do is tomorrow I'll put a link on my webpage to Science to Sage where they can find it easier. There's one already, but it's on the old what do you call it, program for the conference, but I'll put another one up there on the front page there, so it'll be easier to find. Anyway, I just want to remind everybody we have our conference coming up next year, August 12th to 16th. You can get the this year's conference as a video on demand from how to. Just click on the guide that's on the main page. And I noticed some of these people in here are asking questions about the rave or RAV. That was last week's presentation. Just go to Steve's place, click on my homepage there, and it will take you right there, give you all of them, and you might want to go back and review some of that stuff. And Karen, it was a wonderful presentation as usual, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week with Michael.
Yeah, Michael, our editors are going to be back because I've done a whole magazine, so you'll see tons and tons and tons. And I've been at the Tesla Tech Conference many, many, many times. I am the person who does the interviews in between the gaps. So come join us. That's always fun.
Yes, and then I guess after next week we're looking possibly having Don here.
I haven't heard back from Don Estes. Don Estes did a really interesting paper, how we from digital to analog, but also with the lens, how he shows the matrix. It's all about lenses. But when I saw the eye and I saw his paper, Real and Imagine, it went back to me to looking at heaven and earth and stuff. But he has, I haven't heard back from Don, but I hope so.
Yeah, and I noticed looking at your cubes there, if you ever play any of these board games, they all use hexagonals, but if you look at a hexagonal, it's kind of like a cube, but without the
dimension
closest to you being drawn in there. So, yeah, check that out sometime. Anyway, we'll see you all next week, and y'all have a good week. And it's the end of the month, so don't forget, if you get a chance, to be sure to sign up on YouTube. It really helps us out when you do that. And I can't think of anything else to say right this second.
You know what? I think the only other thing is, if anybody wanted to buy the videos, the one that relates to this one the most would also be Terrence Howard's video. He did a beautiful presentation at Tesla Tech this last year.
And if you don't want to get the whole thing, online, you can order the DVD separately. It just costs more. And given today's financial situation, like it costs a fortune to ship, especially overseas. Just give an example, a set of our DVDs, the complete set, cost me $95 to ship them to Germany this week. So it's better off if you just go ahead and get online if you possibly can. I think you'll enjoy them all, and they'll be available, I say, forever. But anyway, y'all have a good week, and we'll see you next week. And thank you again, Karen.
Oh, yeah. And you know what, you guys, when you go to Scientist Age magazine, you don't have to buy the subscription. Just sign it in the newsletter if you want. If not, go to the free issues or go to the library, and it's all there.
Yeah. Although I would say, anytime that you subscribe to our authors and everything here, you help us out, stay alive and be able to put out more material. So anyway, thank you all for coming, and see you all next week.
Bye, you guys.